Wow, so here we are. Welcome to my first annual coronavirus bass hang. Just want to thank all of y'all for being here with me. And man, this is just something to get us connected again. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been losing my mind. Stuck at the house. We're trying not to go too many places if possible. Sometimes you have to, but we've been taking daily field trips whenever possible, and just at the very least getting out and driving around. So I hope that all of you are managing as well during this super crazy time. It's cool because in spite of our disconnection, which is not a good thing, and we need human interaction. At the very least, we do have the social media and the medium of the internet and YouTube and all this other stuff to be able to at least see one another and chat with one another and commiserate over our quarantine together. So I'm super grateful that this is even possible to do, and I've been inspired by seeing other musicians left and right just doing free performances and all kinds of cool stuff, and it's given me all kinds of new ideas and about ways to reach out and connect with y'all. Some of you are already subscribers to my lessons site. I want to thank you for that. Anybody who's, even if you're not doing it now, if you did it in the past, thanks so much for being a part of that. That's been a cool way to connect with people with bass education, but really hoping to kind of expand the whole performance thing and trying to figure out, at least during this time, are there ways that we can still enjoy quality media and great music and great conversation, as a way to kind of keep us connected. So I'm just super excited about seeing y'all here. So thank you so much. You'll see me periodically drinking here because my heater's been running and it makes my throat dry, and I have allergies, so not a real good combination. I got some great requests via email and on Facebook about things to talk about, and I'm here for y'all. I'm excited about learning more about y'all too. I realize we'll have a little bit of limitations with the chat because there's so much bandwidth there. I'll do my best to try to keep up, but y'all, I appreciate your grace ahead of time so that John Casey's here. What's up, Kingpin? Witty music, Michael Whitaker, partner in crime. So cool. So yeah, I'll just do my best to keep up and go with that. There's Myron. Man, this is so cool. I really appreciate y'all being here. I'll be honest with you, I've got absolutely no agenda. I didn't practice anything for this. The idea wasn't to do like a clinic performance, but I do want to answer questions if anybody has any questions. Like I said, we can talk about bass gear, we can talk about improvisation, technique, what you're practicing, I just if you need any sort of tips or anything like that. One thing I've been doing lately that you may have, I don't know, if you have a loop pedal, they're really awesome for practicing with. I mean, obviously there's people that perform with them. But I see the comment, by the way, about it being quiet. Let me see if I can turn up the feed. Let me know if that helps at all. I want to be careful not to distort. Y'all just need to let me know if something catastrophe happens with sound. But I've got a little TC Electronics Ditto, and I've been trying to get in this ritual in the morning, especially since you turn on the news and it's just so depressing, right? You know, it's just you got to take breaks, you know. So I basically I put limitations on my media consumption, especially with news and current events, because I just get overwhelmed with it. But one thing that I've been trying to do is when I first get up in the morning, I kind of got this little ritual now, and it involves coffee, of course. But yeah, it's weird. Over the last couple years, I've become quite a coffee addict, and yeah, we have a Keurig and a French press, and I don't know. That's part of my morning ritual. So I love getting up. I'm trying to get up earlier these days. Get a coffee, and I do this I've got a little Bible devotion thing that I do on my phone that gets emailed to me every morning. I go through there just to try to get myself centered. I try not to get up and just dive straight into current events and what's going on, because I just find it's, like I said, it can be really, really overwhelming. But after doing that, then I like to come in here and just pick up a bass, and again with no agenda, and just try to play something, almost like it's a musical prayer or something like that. You just kind of giving something away, and I don't have an audience here or anything, but I try to get into sort of a headspace of creativity, and so it's not really practicing first thing in the morning, but it is kind of I don't know, I guess it is sort of like a practice of a performance, if you will, something like that. But loop pedals are cool because sometimes they can inspire really neat little ideas, and especially if you have if you've got effects or some sort of way to manipulate your sound to change things around. Often that can be that can create inspiration as well. But it's fun. It's fun to kind of just create grooves and stuff. And so I got this little groove here, and I'm just thinking D minor, right? So this is kind of, I need to turn my feet up too so I can hear better. I'll show you what I'm playing. I got my little mini pedal board with me tonight, but this chorus on right now, and so maybe what I'll do is I'll just kind of set up a real simple sort of cyclical progression or something, right? So I don't know, let's see. So I'm just trying to find something. Just had a two measure thing going, and I just love just kind of stretching over stuff like this, so maybe I change up the sound a little or something. I got this little delay going on, there's echo. I'm trying to kind of just go somewhere with it, right? And this is a lot of times how compositions will begin for me, where I'm trying to I'm trying to chase down a mood, right? I don't know how some of you, if any of you like to compose music, you like write music, musing. Maybe you like to muse too. Sometimes we get caught up in the idea of like, okay, well I'm gonna write this riff, right? I'm gonna play this riff. Now I gotta figure out a melody to go on top of this riff, and I've got to do this and that, we sort of stack things up almost like it's Legos. And I don't know that music always kind of responds well that way, because it's I don't feel like it's as free when we kind of put these like the step ladder approach. Like we start at the ground floor. Okay, I'm just going to start with the bass groove, or I'm just going to start with the drum groove, and then I'm going to go up a step, and then I'm going to go up a step by adding a chord here, and then I'm going to go up a step by figuring out this progression for this one section, and then I'm going to put a melody on top. Like that, you can compose that way, and it'll work ultimately. But nowadays, I'm always kind of in search of, all right, what's the message? Like where does this want to go? I try to let the music kind of, I'm not trying to sound all zen or like that. It's kind of where I'm at. I'm trying to think less about things having to do with the academic components of music, like scales, chords, and arpeggios and stuff like that. And I'm trying to think more about like an intention or a mood. And so I don't know, that's what's kind of cool about this is, in the morning before you get overwhelmed with things and before you get distracted, if you can just kind of start out with an idea and just sort of see where it goes. So, so this is really simple because this is just a D minor thing, right? But maybe I try to find a melody. Just now, when I was playing before, I was kind of doing more of like an improvisational thing, right? Just kind of, and it was like I was noodling around more. But melodies are most memorable when they're more simple, right? So maybe I hear something over this. So something simple like that. Right? So that's something that is singable and memorable, hopefully. And it's not, a thing where it's like, that's cool maybe for like an improvisational idea, but as like a melody, sort of trying to set something up, that's not going to work as well. It's a lot of activity, it's a lot of busyness. Music, needs to breathe. There's no shortage of metaphors for music when it comes to communicating with people. So when you're talking to someone, you have to take a breath at some point, right? You can't just keep talking, blah, monophonic, blah, 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 I'm not gonna stop until I say everything. Like we stop and pause, and we draw from cues from the other person. Also, we want our answers to be related to questions. We want our what we say to be related, right? So if one thing that I've kind of joked about in bass lessons before with people that are trying to get more of this down, like let's say, okay, well, if you ask me what color is your car, a silly answer would be 6514. It's not related to it at all. Or if the question is a particular thing, you want the answer to be related to that particular thing. And the same goes in music, right? So it's like if I'm asking a question, maybe the question was what I just sang. 1, 2, 3. So that's the question. The answer might be Question. The answer might be. Question. The answer might be. Question again. And the answer might be. But notice there's a breath in between, right? There's space in between. So that's kind of that's the main thing I'm trying to think about when it comes to conversational things with music. So that's really the point I wanted to make with that. So let me, since I'm talking too much already, which I was afraid of. Oh, David Hughes is online. Beautiful. Chris Dunn's online. Amazing. Tim Rasmussen. What is up? Sean, what's going on? Amazing. Okay. Guys, I'll try to be better at stopping and looking at this. I haven't done this before. Paul's asking if I ever start writing by having a melody or an idea for a melody first before you write a groove or progression. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. I could go through my tunes one by one and I could tell you, what the evolution was. I'm not a writer that always writes one way, but, sometimes, the melody is the singable part of the music, right? So that's the part that you can sing. It's hard to sing a chord. It's hard to sing a multi-pitched structure with our voice. But yeah, sometimes I hear the melody and it's done. And then I'm working from the top down. Sometimes I start with the bass line groove because I just felt something that was cool. I was playing something that I thought was interesting, and then I build on top of that. So that's a great question. There's no rule, there's no right or wrong when it comes to that stuff. At least in my world, I get inspired from the top down and from the bottom up. Derek, what's up? John's asking, what's my least favorite aspect of my signature bass? I know everyone harps on the best features, and I want to know if you would change anything about it. Okay. That's a great question, actually. So this bass that I'm playing right now, and I have several that are down here with me. I'll probably change basses here and there, but I have a 5-string signature bass with Ibanez. And that's what I'm playing. And I'll do some videos related to more in-depth talking about this stuff. But that's a great question because people with signature models and people with instruments in general, like they love to brag about what they love about the instrument. There's nothing that I don't like about the bass, but I would say my least favorite thing with this would be my least favorite with a lot of my favorite instruments, and I have a bunch. And that is, most instruments kind of, they do what they do, but they can't really emulate what another bass does, right? So I'm not saying that basses can't be versatile at all, because obviously if you have more than one pickup, if you have multiple pickups on the bass, if you got a preamp and tone controls, obviously you can change the sound. But one thing I learned over time was that the foundational tone of the instrument can't really be changed. It can be tweaked and played with, but the fundamental character of the instrument never really changes, right? There's no way I can get this bass to sound exactly like a P bass, or a Stingray, or a Ken Smith, or an MTD. Like it's not designed to try and be a one size fits all. As much as I think a lot of us would love to have something that did everything, it's kind of tough. So yeah, I mean, I fantasize about, it'd be cool if an instrument could almost do like the modeling thing, that we're doing now with amplifiers, and just instantly change into a completely different fundamental character. But this bass is like any other one. It doesn't really do that. You listen to this thing, and if I play a groove, listen to that, and then you know instantly, I can pick up another. Well, this is very different. This is my six string signature bass with Ibanez. Totally different instrument, right? This is a very much more modern sounding instrument. It's got quad coil pickups, and it's a neck through, and it's got heavy tone woods and stuff, right? So if I play the exact same groove, and I forgive me if I'm out of tune. So I'll just put both pickups up all the way. Sorry, I'm breaking up, it sounds like. Let me turn that down. I mean, it's very, very different, you know. I had this basically flat just then. But any other instrument I pick up, it's going to sound different, right? And so, yeah, that's a kind of a long-winded answer, but everything else I like, because, you know, I kind of hand-picked the specs for it. So let's see what else we got. All right, let me go back to, y'all bear with me here. Andy Pointer's online. Steph, get the doggy involved. I'll see what I can do, Andy. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Oh yeah, something that was asked really early on and I missed it, like what pedal I was using. Let me just show you what I have right now on this board for anybody who cares, want to nerd out in this way. So yeah, I've just got this little pedal train Nano. And I just have an arbitrary set of pedals on here right now. But so I've got this Slimline D'Addario tuner. This is, I don't even know if they make these anymore. This is a Daring Audio Fat Beam. It's a dynamics processor pedal. It's basically a compressor that does a lot more than just compress. It's got a limiter on it. There's controls, blend controls, influences tone. It's really an amazing piece. One of my favorite little Mojo pedals. This is a first generation Visual Sound H2O, and this is what I was using for the analog chorus and the analog echo. And then this is the TC Electronics Ditto. That's the looper that I'm using. It's funny, I'm not a huge pedal guy, but I've amassed a pretty big collection over the years. And I'm getting to where I enjoy using them more. And I'm going to do another broadcast like this that's just going to be about pedals. And we're going to go through and we're just going to try out all my pedals. We're going to listen to them all. So that's in maybe I'll do that in the next one. I don't know. That might be fun to do. So that's that. All right, let me get caught up. Someone's asked about double thumb slap stuff. Cool. All right, I'm going to try to go one at a time, and I'm trying to move really fast. How long did I practice sweeps before I perfected that technique? Well, I don't feel like I've perfected it yet, but thank you. The whole sweep thing, you know, like I've said many times before, I mean, I just ripped that off from guitar players. And the technique itself, and we don't have to turn this into like a total sweep lesson or anything, but just to kind of just explain one particular point here. The whole thing, that if you haven't seen a suite before, it's the idea of using, well, the way I do it anyways, I use my thumb like a pick. So I'll go across the strings with the upstrokes with my thumb like this, and then I'll use my index finger as a pick going backwards for the downstrokes. So thumb is ascending, index finger is descending, in like a simple form. Okay, so that's a D minor. That's a D minor arpeggio. The degrees that I'm playing are root. This is from a D. I'm starting this on 10th fret E string. So I've got my root, my flat 3, which I hammer on, my 5, which I pluck, the root, or the octave rather, which I pluck, flat 3 I pluck, 5 I hammer, and then I tapped the flat 7 to make it a D minor 7 more specifically. Okay, so the technique itself is not hard. In fact, it took me probably about a week just to get to where the technique, like the muscle memory of it was going. The hard part is getting the synchronization right between the two hands, because you've got to make sure that your thumb and your index finger are moving at the exact right time to where you can keep everything clean, right? And the muting task is the other challenging part too, because you don't want it to sound like this. Hear all that sympathetic vibration? That sounds really cruddy, right? But you got to keep, when I go up, I only want to hear the notes that I play. I don't want to hear any other vibration. So you've got the hands and I use my forearm to mute, believe it or not. You've got to use those in conjunction to keep everything quiet. I'm very much kind of I'm a stickler when it comes to technique. I know a lot of you use hair ties, for muting, and that's cool. I mean, that does make it a lot easier. But when I started doing this, when I was a teenager, I was determined. There weren't hair tie ideas back then. I don't know if Victor Wooten started that, or maybe his brother. It's probably Reggie. I don't know. I'll have to ask Victor. But before anyone even thought about that, it was just all I was concerned with was trying to get my technique really, really happening. So yeah, I found a way to use different parts of my hands and arms even to maintain muting and keep things quiet. And this applies to every technique that I use, whether it's sweeping or slapping or whatever. So in answer to your question, that took months to get down. That was the harder part. Okay. What made me want to start working on learning electric guitar? So some of you may not realize, but in my new record that's getting ready to come out, how long have I been saying that? But now, thanks to Corona, I have time to finish. I've actually played a bunch of the guitar parts on the record so far, and I don't consider myself a guitarist. I'm very much a hack, and full disclosure, most of the guitar parts I played had to be punched in egregiously. So, I was really going slow and having to take my time. Sometimes slowing things down just to be able to play them. But I've never had an aspiration really to be a guitarist, but I realized before I started working on this record, I realized how much of a wider perspective I could have as a writer if I didn't just write on keyboards and bass. And so many people, singer-songwriters and guitar players and everybody in between, it's like they use guitars all the time, acoustic guitar, even if it's just strumming, to write. And I was like, man, I'm really missing out on something, I think. And so I got an electric guitar and I got an acoustic guitar, and I just started trying to sound things out. I even learned like some solos. I learned a Stevie Ray Vaughan solo and a solo off Bryan Adams' record. I don't even know the name of the guitar. It's one of my favorite guitar solos. This tune cuts like a knife, this old tune, and just picking random stuff here and there, AC/DC, whatever, and just trying to get more familiar with voicings and stuff. And the whole purpose for it, in answer to your question, was just to be able to have another compositional tool, and ultimately, live have an actual real guitar player do the parts justice or whatever. But some of the parts I played, I'm happy with, but it takes me so much longer than it would take a real guitar player. I don't know how far I'm going to go with it, but I definitely love writing on it because this new record it's going to be a rock record, a hard rock record, and it needed more guitar, and so I needed to think like a guitar player, and having never played it before, I don't know, it was really exciting and fun. I also recently took up the upright bass as well. That's a whole nother form of torture, but I'm working on that too, getting better at that. Yeah, I've been talking about the book for the longest time. It's embarrassing to say it's not out yet. I'm actually working on 2 books, and they were started and then put on the shelf. I will have a technique book that will be coming out, and it's going to be loosely based on some of the technique curriculum from my website, but in a much more demonstrative fashion and with everything's notated and broken down. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm doing a book that's based around the pentatonic scale, and not just the idea of just playing a pentatonic scale, and that's it, but actually using the pentatonic scale creatively in improvisational context. I've got a whole approach that I've developed over time based on pentatonics that I want to share with everybody. That basically it gives you a more modular way of thinking about improvisation based on what I call displacement substitutions. So those will be the first 2, and they're going to be ebooks at first, and if there's a demand, I'll do printed books as well. I think it's easier now than it used to be, I think, with Amazon and stuff like that, to kind of do both at the same time. So thanks for the question. I will get it done, I promise. Tim's asking about teaching some chords. Absolutely. Let's talk about chords. So, as bass players, we don't get to play chords much, right? We're foundational people, meat and potatoes kind of people. So, I'm trying to get centered over here. So, for chords are awesome because, again, and I'll use my loop pedal to kind of demonstrate this stuff, but chords are they're the building blocks of harmony. And you need to, if you're a bass player, you got to know your chords, and you got to know what goes with different chord types, what's appropriate to be played over certain chord types. And taking a step farther, a lot of players assume, I'm trying to adjust this microphone. A lot of players assume that scales are what you use to improvise all the time, but scales are just the beginning. They're just I think of scales more as like a ground floor approach to improvisation. The way my concept for improvisation is based on chords. So it's almost like I'm thinking chords on top of chords. So having said that, it's good to get familiar with certain chord types, at the very least basic triadic and 7th chord forms. All right. So just giving you like a quick little primer, and some of you have played these already, I realize, but for those of you that haven't, maybe this will help you out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a root that, I'll tell you what, I'll do this on a 4-string bass so that you see that you don't have to have a lot of strings to do this. And this will make it universal for everybody, okay? So, first thing I'm going to do, double check levels here. Sorry y'all, it's distorting. There we go, okay. So I'm going to take the root A, 12th fret. If y'all got your bass, you can do this with me. And I'm just going to show you some triads. All right, so triads are just 3-note chords. They're like little stacked little block chord thingies, right? So a triad's got a root, a third, and a fifth in it. So if I play the root, I'm going to make the root A for all these chords just to keep it simple. So I'm going to play the root A. This is a major triad, okay? And I'm going to got my fourth finger on the root. I'm going to put my third finger on the third, okay? So an A major triad has the notes A, C sharp, and E. So with the root A under my fourth finger, that means the third is going to be the C sharp. Okay, so I've got that. That's just a third. See, you can play those together and it sounds chord-like, right? It's a little double stop, right? Another thing too, I like to use my thumb and combination of index, middle, and ring fingers to play chords so that I can pluck outward instead of just strumming. You can strum and that's cool, but I like the idea of doing this because then all the notes sound at the same time. Of course, go with whatever the situation calls for, but that's something that I like to do. I've got the fifth under my first finger, which is the note E. So fourth finger, A, 12th fret, third finger, 11th fret, C sharp, first finger, 9th fret, which is the note E. That's A major triad. And you can move that all over. A major triad. Okay, so now let's turn it into a minor triad. The A major is kind of happy sounding, right? Kind of bright. Now I'm gonna make it sound a little more darker, more sad by doing. I'm only gonna change one note, and that's the middle note, the third. So that's C sharp. This note here, I'm gonna move it down a half step to a C natural. So now I'm playing the notes A, C, E, and I'm using the fingering 4, 2, 1. That's an A minor triad. And one cool thing you can do with this is you can, whether you use a loop pedal or a music software or whatever, you can start to get the sound of scales matched up with these chords just to get familiar with how they work together, right? So a scale that fits over a major triad is a major scale. So if I'm playing an A major triad, an A major scale is going to be a scale that is compatible, right? So the A major scale, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, right? So I'm going to play my little loop pedal here. I'll give it some time. So if I play the A major scale now, you can hear how it fits. I'll play it an octave higher, so it's kind of matched up in range. So you get the idea. That's just that's something you can do, and that's kind of cool. With the minor triad, I can do the same thing, right? I'm playing A minor scale. And for those of you that know your modes, I'm specifically playing the Aeolian scale, which is the sixth mode in a major key. Right? So it's just it's nice because if you have a way to record yourself, you can kind of listen to the sounds and make sure that you're matching the tonality that's there. Okay, I'll show you one more triad, and this is a diminished triad. So this is the exact same thing as the minor triad, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the 5, the 5th, and I'm going to move that down a half step. So I'm playing a root, a flat third, and a flat 5th. And that's a diminished triad. So we've got major, minor, and diminished. And by the way, the notes in the diminished triad are A, C, and E flat. I'm using fingers 4, 2, and 1 for that. Okay, so those are the triads. And then it's cool to know 7th chords also because they sound really pretty on the bass. So a 7th chord has a root, third, 5th, and a 7th in it. But when we play chords on the bass, typically we leave one of those out for a couple reasons. One is that when you start stacking 4 notes together on a bass, because we're in the low frequency zone, it can sound muddy, right? The other reason is that usually the fifth, the fifth that's in the chord ends up being kind of redundant with respect to the color of the chord, and so we leave it out because the chord sound in the color, and it's already implied without it being there. And it also makes it a lot easier to actually play, because if you try to play a 7th chord on the bass the way it's tuned, like if I tried to play an A major 7, I'd have to go 1, 3, 5 and play the 7 up here with another finger from another hand. That's not very practical, right? So again, A is the root. I'm going to play the root, this time with my 2nd finger. I'm going to play the 3rd with my 1st finger on the C sharp. We're going to drop the 5th altogether because we don't really need it for this chord. And we're going to play the 7th on the 13th fret, which is our G sharp. So I've got an A, a C sharp, and a G sharp. You see how this sounds more jazzy or more open sounding compared to just the triad? This is super like, cut and dry sounding. It's very, to me, it's blocky sounding. I don't know why, but the word blocky sounds like a block of something. It's just a stack, bang, it's like a brick of sound, right? But this sounds pretty and more open, right? Major scale still works for that, okay? So you can take a major 7 chord and make it minor 7 by just moving the 3rd and the 7th down a half step. So now instead of playing A, C sharp, G sharp, I'm going to play A, C, and G. That's the minor 7 chord. It's the minor scale played over it. That still works, right? I'm not going to get into harmonization and all that stuff. It's beyond the scope of this hang, but these are just some forms we can use. Now let's do another one. Let's do a dominant 7 chord. So if I take that minor 7 chord and I just raise the 3, which was a flat 3 right now on this C, raise it up to a half step to C sharp. Now I've got a root, a 3rd, and a flat 7. This is an A dominant 7 chord. And I'll show you one more. This is a half diminished chord. And what I'm going to do is half diminished also has a name, minor 7 flat 5. If you ever hear someone talk about a minor 7 flat 5 chord or half diminished chord, they're the same thing. And we've got a root, a flat 3rd, a flat 5th, and a flat 7 in that chord, right? So this is the only exception. I'm actually going to include the 5th in this one because it's a minor 7 flat 5 chord. That's an important tone. It's in the name of the chord. We're going to drop the 3 and play the 5 this time. So I've got a root, a flat 5, and a flat 7. So that's an A. In this case, it's going to be an E flat for the flat 5, and then our flat 7 is going to be the G. All right? Major 7, minor 7, dominant 7, minor 7, flat 5. So that's a quick little chord primer for you. Okay. Do I think loopers are better for solo playing? I don't know. They work in a lot of different contexts. For me, it's just whether or not it sounds good. If it sounds musical, there's definitely lots of people using them in different ways. All right, I need to catch up on some questions here. All righty. Double thumb slap stuff, I'm going to race through these types of things. The double thumb technique, I don't really use it, honestly. I kind of do my own version of that. It's my own little hybrid version to try and get that same sort of aggressive sound. But the basic technique for double thumb involves a downstroke and an upstroke, just like if you were playing with a pick. But the idea is that the downstroke, you go through the string, and then the upstroke, you play the same string. So it's like your thumb is a pick going in a downward and an upward direction. So if I'm playing, a scale, this isn't for me, it's not really as comfortable. I didn't spend time working on that, but what I did do, kind of my version, was I use my thumb still as a downstroke, but I'll use it more as a slap than a sort of like a cut through, and I'll use my index, middle, and ring fingers as the up. So I'll go down, if I'm doing a two-note combination, I'll go down with the thumb and then up with the index finger. So I've got a down, up, down, up, down, up with fingers 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, right? If I do a three-note combination, it's thumb, 1, 2. So it's a three-note, thumb, 1, 2, thumb, 1, 2. And if I want to do a four-note combination, it's thumb, 1, 2, 3. Sorry. So you've got 2 notes, 3 notes, 4 notes. And you can always add an extra note by starting with the hammer on. So if I do a hammer and then the 2 notes, I've got 3 notes instead. Hammer, 1, 2. Actually, it's hammer, thumb, 1, hammer, thumb, 1. If I do the 3-note combination, thumb, 1, 2, and add a hammer, it's 4 notes. Hammer, thumb, 1, 2. And if I do the 4-note combination and hammer, it's 5 notes. So it's hammer. I'm not in the greatest position the way I'm trying to face the screen here. Let me do it this way. Turn this way. There we go. Okay. So it's hammer and then thumb, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's kind of that's my contribution to that world of sounds. Russ Rogers, oh man, my bass teacher is up here. He's ridiculously awesome. Man, thanks for being here, Russ. And online bass lessons, Russ Rogers is the guy right now. He's at the risk of losing students myself. He's the man. He's amazing. Huge part of my inspiration and learning path, for sure. So check him out, Russell Rogers. How do I travel with my bass? Well, if I have my new rule of thumb, always subject to changes because sometimes it's unpredictable airline travel. If I have a direct flight, I purchase early boarding and I take my bass on the plane. If I don't have a direct flight and I'm able to purchase early boarding all the way through all the flight legs, I do the same thing. I put my bass in a gig bag, I bring it on the plane with me, put it in the overhead, just making sure I get on. It's worth it to me to pay the extra money to be one of the first people boarding. If I don't have that luxury and I don't want to freak out. Lots of times I'll check my bass, and I use those SKB bass safes where you put your bass in a gig bag, and then the bass safe is this. They're really cool. They're these ABS plastic cases. They're 2-piece cases that slip together, and then they have these clips, and they've got foam lining on the interior, so they protect the bass from the sides and from the ends. I check it, with the rest of my luggage, and I can say, knock on wood, I traveled literally all over the world with 2 of those and never had any damage. So that's how I try to travel. Love having my bass with me if possible, but sometimes it's just not possible. Who inspired me? Man. Okay, so tons and tons of people, but the short list of bass players that had the biggest influence on me would have to be Jaco Pastorius, Dominique DiPiazza, John Patitucci, Marcus Miller, Michel Ndegeocello. If I had a top 5, that would be it. But at the same time, I can't leave out Stanley Clarke, Victor Wooten, Billy Sheehan for sure. I forgot to mention him because he was an early influence. And I'm forgetting. I'll just do 10. I'll do 2 more. Gary, did I say Gary Willis already? I think I did. Russell Rogers, my bass teacher. Can't forget him. And I guess for number 10, I would say man, there's so many. If I just roll the dice, I'll go with Tom Kennedy, killer player. So many great players. But inspiration for me comes from all instruments. But those are the first 5 I mentioned were the bass players that I probably tried to emulate the most at the beginning. So yeah, that's where some of this comes from. All right, hey Carl, what's up, man? Michael Richmond, do you find that if the action is set slightly higher, you have more of a dynamic control? That's an awesome question. I play with what I would call low to medium low action. And my reason for doing that is because I play with a pretty conservative touch, and where I typically play on the instrument still leaves me headroom to be able to dig in. Other bass players get on my basses and it sounds super clacky if they play a lot harder than me or a lot more aggressive. So I like to set my action to where I'm still getting a round tone, nice low end from it. But if I want to dig in, I like getting a bark. I like that sound when I'm trying to go for that sort of attitude. If you got like sort of like a funky groove, like. I like it when the instrument barks a little bit. I think that's pretty cool. But here's the thing, if you go too far in any direction, you get diminishing returns. If your action is too low, what happens is the amplitude of vibration from the string, it doesn't have as much room to vibrate because it runs into the fret, right? And just generally speaking, like the larger the amplitude of vibration, like the more round the tone is going to be, the more low end content it's going to have. If you get you've probably heard or played basses before. When the action is super super low, it feels thin. It sounds thin, and it frets out easy. It's like it's got no body or no real meat to it, right? So I don't like to get the action too low for that reason, but. The other thing you have to remember is some instruments respond better to low action than others. So I have certain basses that they don't mind the action being lower and they still sound pretty round as long as I don't overdo it, right? But other ones, I don't have that kind of headroom. If the action gets too high, the negative thing there is if it gets high enough, it'll actually compromise your sustain. And the other thing too is that because you are, using greater strength to fret the notes, and you're having to go a farther distance, the intonation, like the sound of intonation, actually changes a little bit because it changes the amount of surface area of your finger that's coming into contact with the string. Because think about it, the harder you press on something, the more it flattens your fingertip, and that can affect your tone and intonation, especially on a fretless. But so I don't like it to go too high. So generally speaking, if the action gets too low, then you are running out of dynamic range. So it's a great question, but that can happen also if you go too high. So somewhere in the middle, based on how you play, how hard you dig in is going to be really important to understand. It's a great question. 3 bass players walk into a bar. Mike, I don't know. That's all you. You tell us. Billy still got my old Curvo Petite. Oh man, that's so cool. No offense, I wish I still had it. I miss those basses, man. Let's see. Yeah, I still have the Warrior signatures, of course. Tremendous, amazing instruments. So grateful to have been able to have a model with them. Amazing stuff. So, Mark B is asking, hi Adam, what size and combination of speakers do you prefer? Used to be, I would say tens. I loved arrays of tens, and I still love tens, and I still use tens. But I really like 12s. What kind of changed my focus a little bit was when Aguilar started making the super light stuff. They released these 1x12 cabinets, and I got to try one out, and I loved the sound of it. And it was a great cabinet for full range. The first one I ever played through of theirs was a DB112, and it's still, the DB112 is still my all-time favorite Aguilar cabinet. It's just a 112 with a horn, but it sounds so great because it doesn't overcolor things. It's your tone, a chunky, close to flat version of your tone. They're really cool. When you use them together, like with multiple versions, like stack them, they sound really cool. So I've got a rig where I've got 2 DB112s, and I have another rig with 2 of the Superlight 112s, which sound amazing also. They have a slightly different tone than the DB112s, but they've got their own thing. And when I first tried out those, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a game changer, because carrying 112s that only weigh 24 pounds each, I think they are 24 or 25 pounds each, and then with a lightweight head in a case or on your shoulder, you can literally carry your whole rig on your shoulder in 2 hands. Like that's pretty awesome. So for in-town performances that I do, that's usually what I'll grab. But at the same time, I still have 3 410 cabinets, and I love the sound of the 10s. It's just that they have a larger footprint, and if you're playing a really small stage, sometimes they take up more valuable space than you want to use. But I like 10s and 12s the most. But it's not that I don't like 18s or 15s. Those are awesome too. But I don't know. I've just the 10s and the 12s I've kind of associated more with my own sound. Love them. Let's see. Jared Allen, what's up, man? One of my bass students. Stephen Cox is here. What's going on, bro? Good to see you. John, thanks, man. Yeah, it was Reggie. I figured it was when we were talking about the hair tie thing before. Victor got that from his brother, Reggie. Very cool. Thanks for confirming that. Let's see. What else? What's my litmus test for whether my amp is too loud or too soft on stage? Man, that's a great question. Oh, man. So I try to get my amp set to where I'm not digging in harder than I normally would with my technique. So I try to get it set to that volume. The problem comes when you're playing with players that have really loud amps as well. And there's some guitar players that play loud, and heck, if I was a guitar player, I'd play loud too. But the worst thing that can happen is getting into like a volume war on stage where one turns up and the other turns up, and the other turn. It becomes this, just horribly diminishing returns as everybody gets louder and louder, and then the sound man hates you and leaves in a huff because he has no more control over your volume in the PA. So most of the acts that I'm playing with now, we've been playing enough to kind of know, with the sound man's help, what's the appropriate level on stage, and just kind of get used to it. The worst thing is not being able to hear yourself, and if I can't hear myself and I don't want to get louder, then I go to extremes. I'll move my cabinets. I mean, I've done gigs before where I've literally taken my cabinets from behind me and I've moved them in front of me, like I have a stack facing me. I've done that before. I've put them to my side where it's side firing. I've done everything in between. I've kept cabinets behind me and put one in front of me angled upwards. That's worked before. You know, people are going to remember you in the way you don't want them to. If they look at you as, I don't want to call them because they play too loud. Because a lot of players, they don't want to ask you to turn down. They're super self-conscious about rocking the boat. So I'm super paranoid about that now after having gotten in trouble in the past. So I'll always ask people, hey man, am I too loud? Are y'all cool with this? You know, I'm super paranoid. So I'll check always just to make sure, and just, I'm not afraid to ask somebody, hey, is there any way you can turn down just a little bit, and just kind of see what they say. So that is, I don't know, that's kind of rule of thumb for me. Am I proficient with any other instrument? Back in the day, I was proficient at classical piano, but when I started playing bass, I really stopped practicing. So now I just compose on the keyboards and nothing else. And that's really it. Bass has kind of been my main love. Yeah, Sean, Sean was asking if the 4-string was a lawsuit era Ibanez, and it is. It's a 76, and it's in pretty mint condition. I've never seen one in quite this good a shape, so I paid top dollar for it, but it was worth it. I wanted one for a long time. Okay, let's see. What else? Oh, my wife's online. I forgot Geddy Lee. Good grief. Geddy Lee was my that's embarrassing. Geddy Lee was one of my top influences. Probably, well, really my first bass influence. Oh, and John Paul Jones. I forgot those. Man, not good. I've got swimmy brain, and I'm just thinking of so many different players. But yeah, Steph reminded me of that. All right. Play Intro to Divine Wind to bring that home. All right, Divine Wind. I don't know if I remember it. Let me see. All right, so Divine Wind was using that technique that I was talking about, that sort of hybrid thing. That's pretty rusty, but that's that. So that's a tune that's on my Evidence album, that I used that technique to influence writing that tune. I like if I'm working on a new technique, I don't just metronome it. I try to actually turn it into a song so it has a practical, musical use. What's up, Tim? Yeah. Jeez. I can't believe I forgot Geddy. Wow. All right. Yeah, my wife got me. Do any of you have that big, beautiful book of bass that Geddy did? Man, it's so amazing. She got me that for my birthday, and boy, you get lost in that book. So many incredible pictures. If you like bass porn, then that's the book for you. It's incredible. What book out there for bass to have for great chords and modes? That's a good question. I hmm. Some of you may have one. I don't have one that I recommend per se. I mean, I don't want to sound I don't want to sound like a marketing guy, but I like the way that I laid it out on my website, my lessons website, is is the way that I like to teach it. So you know, if you got like a backstage pass, like 1 week of access to my website, Avenue Music Education, you could actually just go on there and just download all the forms and for chords and modes and all that stuff, and then you know basically get talked through how to start at the beginning and build from there. And that teaches you about harmonization and stuff too. But if I think of a book before I leave, I'll let you know. All right. I'm going to start at the end and go backwards. Chord progressions for song. Oh yeah, that's a book suggestion. Thanks, Christopher. Very cool. Where can we find all my albums? You can go to my website for links. My distributor, online distributor, is CD Baby, and you could also just go straight to their site. I'm getting a lot of requests these days to reissue some of these CDs because it's almost all just digital now. My records, so I think I'm gonna have to bite the bullet and do some more runs for some hard product, because there's still people that love CDs out there, myself included. And I'm also, for those of you who are audiophiles, I'm going to do a high res version of at least a couple of the most recent records on, I think Bandcamp is where I'm probably going to place that, so you'll be able to buy like FLAC files from there. Anthony, I'd love to come to Orlando. I used to live in Orlando, actually Altamont Springs. I'm in a situation where I'm really trying to find somebody who could be the appropriate person to book me. You know, in some other cities, I've been doing it myself for so long, so I'm looking for somebody to help me. If you know anyone who would like to bring me or my band in, please get in touch with me. I would love to come to Orlando to play. Didier, hey there, Mexico, love it. How do I play the song Schizo? Okay, well, I'm actually working on a play along right now for Schizo. In fact, it's on my computer screen. I've been so back there, I don't know if you can see, back there on the big screen, I've got Sibelius open, and I'm working on the notation for it. But yeah, I'll if you want, I can try to play the intro for you real quick. Let's see. All right, so it's got this. Again, I haven't played this in a while, but intro. Am I in the wrong key? That's right. One, two, three. It's probably better with a clock source, but anyways, that's the intro. So and I'll have a play along. Like I said, that'll be done this week actually. I don't use a wireless from bass to amp. I'm just using cables. So yeah, I'm not using one. Jason was asking about the Bartolini preamp that I have. I've got a custom Bartolini preamp in my basses. So if you're at all familiar with the Bartolini NTMB preamp, it has a treble, a bass, and a mid-range control. It's an active preamp, and there's a toggle switch for the frequency of the mid-range, and there's a master volume, and then there's a pickup blend. So basically, my preamp kind of started life as one of those, but it was modified in a few different ways. One, the EQ frequencies were changed slightly. The other thing is that there is actually even though it's an active preamp, there is a passive buffer control in the cavity of the bass that it's just like a passive tone control on a passive bass like a Fender J or P or whatever. So you can use the passive buffer in conjunction with the EQ that's on board for the active preamp and basically do all sorts of tone shaping things with it. And it's super, super useful on an instrument like this because with this bass in particular, it has a maple neck, maple board, and it has a swamp ash body. So it's an inherently bright instrument. It's great for cutting through, and if you like to play slap bass, it's great for that sort of thing. But if you want to tame that to move it more in a direction of not being quite as sharp on the top end, the passive buffer is really awesome for that. And I'll oftentimes I'll turn it. It's not like I change it all the time. It's kind of a set it and forget it thing, the way I use it. But if I want to have a little bit more of a traditional bass tone, I'll actually turn that passive buffer all the way down, and then if I want more cut, I'll just use the treble control on the active preamp, and it gives you a really super nice passively influenced tone that doesn't stick out too much. So those are the main things that are different about it, and yeah. All right, cool. It's about almost 20 after 9, so thank you so much for the questions. I'm not going to have time to get to everything, and I've learned a valuable lesson tonight, and that is I need to get through questions faster. So I'm super sorry if I don't get to your specific question. I'll just take a few minutes here, and let me try to just quickly answer some of these. My setup for this chat. Okay. I'm using a MacBook Pro as my camera. I'm actually using the built-in camera on it, and I'm running my streaming software. I'm just using OBS as the software. It allows me to do switching, which is kind of cool. Like I can switch between different scenes, different things I can set up. Different scenes that are coming from my computer, which is really nice. So I'm using that, and then I'm streaming through YouTube. You just have to, basically I have to match my stream key to their servers so that it goes through there. And so basically YouTube is picking up my stream directly, and then it gets broadcasted to y'all. For audio setup, I'm using an Audio-Technica shotgun mic to pick up my voice. Same thing I use when I record bass lessons. And I'm for my bass, I'm running my bass through a Rupert Neve RNDI, just a bass DI here. And my computer tracks, like when I was playing music before we got started, and if I play anything that I want to, like track wise, play over, improvise over, whatever, for these types of things. I run that from my other Mac, and that Mac is what all the audio is being run from, and I'm using an Apollo interface. So my shotgun mic, my bass through the DI, and my computer outputs, they're all going to the Apollo, and then I'm sending one of the outputs of the Apollo to the MacBook that I'm using for the video, and then I'm using headphones so that I'm not getting a feedback loop, and so that y'all don't hear more than one version of the same thing. So I'm running an output to headphones out of both of the headphone out, and the feed are both coming out of the Apollo. And yeah, that's how I have it set up. All right, just a couple more. When I play live, do I use ear protection? Great question. Yes. If I'm doing a show, like when I play with Kenny Loggins, we're all on in-ear monitors. And so in-ear monitors, I have the custom fitted, ceiling in-ear monitors. I use Westone ES5s. Been using them for years. They're my favorite. I love them. So the in-ear monitors are protecting my hearing, and then I run the volume at a level that's not blasting, myself out. So I try not to run too loud. It's tempting to want to run loud with in-ears because it kind of feels good and it sounds good, but I try to be judicious there. And then if I'm doing a gig where we're using floor monitors, I'll wear like I use those D'Addario. I don't have any here, I don't think, but D'Addario sells these earplugs. They're white and they've got like little filters in them, and they're universal earplug, universal fit, and I use those. And you can get those on the D'Addario website or at a dealer. Let's see. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, and hopefully I got the majority of stuff you guys were wondering. Man, if you like doing this, let's do it again. I will be even more prepared with shorter answers, and maybe a way we can maybe there's a way I can moderate this stuff to where it's even more efficient. But thank you so much for being here, and hope you had fun. I had a great time, and I'll send out notices when I do this again. It'll be real soon. And yeah, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm really trying to grow that now. It's I'm trying to go a totally new, rejuvenated direction with my online presence. So I really appreciate you subscribing and liking videos and things like that. Check out my online school, AdamNittyMusicEducation.com. And I want to say a special thank you to all my sponsors, Aeolian amplifiers, Ibanez guitars, D'Addario strings, Bartley pickups, PreSonus software. Appreciate all of them. And God bless all of you. Stay positive, be kind to each other, and look forward to connecting with you real soon. So y'all take care. Bye-bye.